Now, when it comes to girls doing A-level physics, I just think they don't like it. But before we get onto that, I'd like to look at these beams here and the science behind them. Now, there is an experiment that you can do at school when you're looking at specific heat capacity, but it can be quite tricky because there are lots of different things to measure. You've got things like current, potential difference, time, temperature, mass, all of these different things. And therefore, for a lot of students doing the experiment, there's quite a lot of sort of difficulty. There's this kind of high cognitive load. However, what you can do is you can actually use a tin of beans to introduce the idea of specific heat capacity, and you can do that just by looking at the label. Because in addition to the back of it, where it has all of the nutritional information, there are also the cooking instructions. And it says here for a tin of beans, it takes 2.5 minutes to cook in an 850 watt microwave. Other information on the can includes the mass, which is 415 grams, and therefore we can actually work out, just from that information, the specific heat capacity of beans. Now, the first thing you need to remember is that the energy is going to be equal to the power multiplied by the time. Now, on the back of this, it says the microwave is 850 watts, and it takes 2.5 minutes for this to heat up. So that's going to be equal to 2.5 minutes multiplied by 60 seconds. So if we just work that out, this gives a value of 127,500. So that is the energy required to heat up your beans. That's if you have a full can, of course. So what do we mean by specific heat capacity? Well, let's think about the energy supplied, about the mass and the change in temperature. And here delta theta represents our change in temperature. So the energy supplied is going to be 127,500 joules. Now the mass, it says on the side here, is 415 grams. And when it comes to the change in temperature, I'm going to make the assumption that this is currently at room temperature, which is about 20 degrees, and we want it to go up to about 75 degrees, the kind of temperature that things are designed to be cooked at. So that means the change in temperature is going to be 75, take away 20, which is equal to 55 degrees Celsius. Now that's the energy required to raise all of this up to that temperature, but if instead we wanted to raise it just by 1 degree Celsius, well, that's the energy for 55 degrees. So if I divide everything by 55, that's then equal to 2,318.2 joules, which will heat up 415 grams of beans by 1 degree Celsius. But what would happen if we just wanted to heat up maybe 1 bean or 1 gram of baked beans? Well, we can take this number here, and now we can divide that by 415, which is equal to 5.58598. Okay, so too many significant figures, we'll sort that out at the end, and that will then heat up 1 gram of baked beans by 1 degree Celsius. But of course, in physics, we don't just use grams, we tend to use kilograms, which is the SI unit from the International System of Units. So we can take this number here, and we can multiply it by 1,000, and that's now equal to 5,586 joules, which will heat up 1 kilogram of baked beans by 1 degree Celsius. So this number here, the amount of energy required to heat up 1 kilogram of a substance by 1 degree Celsius, is related to its specific heat capacity. The specific heat capacity that we give the letter little c to is equal to the energy divided by the mass times the change in temperature. And there is that experiment where you can get maybe a solid block of aluminium or some water. You can set up a complicated electrical kind of circuit to actually work out the energy supplied. And then you have the most boring experiment where something just gets a little bit hotter for 10 or 15 minutes. Now, of course, by using some baked beans to introduce this idea of looking at specific heat capacity, it means that students can actually approach the subject and relate it to their everyday life. It also means that you can then discuss, how can we make this experiment better? Are there better ways to actually measure the energy rather than just using the calculation on the back of the tin? Is there a better way to maybe measure the mass using a mass balance rather than just relying on the number here? And also, when it comes to the change in temperature, you need to think about measuring it accurately using a thermometer at the start and the end, and maybe stirring it round so you get the actual temperature of all of the beans. So this is something that can introduce the idea of specific heat capacity. And the reason I'm using this is because I saw this recently at an Institute of Physics workshop, and they have some tips which teachers can use when it comes to them planning their lessons. Now, this comes in a booklet, which is top tips for inclusive science teaching, and there's also a poster as well that you can actually use when it comes to planning lessons. And when we talk about inclusive teaching, we're not just talking about getting more girls into physics, but actually there are a whole range of groups which are underrepresented. Most people, when they think of a physicist, think of an old white person, a bit like me, but this guide is designed to help teachers plan better lessons, so it's not just girls, but it's underrepresented groups who don't realise that actually physics and a career in STEM could be for them. So in the guide itself, there are basically 9 tips that you can use if you're a teacher when it comes to planning lessons, and that makes it more inclusive for everybody involved. And then hopefully that just means that everybody's going to enjoy the lesson more, and therefore they might think about considering how physics could fit in with their own career. So the 3 sections really are about creating an inclusive classroom culture, making the learning relevant, and then also building numeracy and literacy for science. And in this booklet, you can see that there's ideas that you can try, as well as some visual things that kind of give you some ideas, and also space for your own notes and reflection. Of course, you probably won't be referring to that every time you're planning a lesson, but you could easily have the top tips for inclusive science teaching maybe up on the wall in your classroom, in the office, or maybe in the prep room. So, by thinking about the example that we just had with the beans, it's something that all students can participate in. You can have loads of tins of beans that students can get hold of, and they can actually be reading the labels. Yes, I guess you could kind of peel off a label and photocopy it, but then it's just like a worksheet. That's not the most interesting way to introduce the concept. So you can have tins of beans, or even empty tins, if you maybe can't trust the students not to throw them around. But you can use something like this. Students can think about how this relates to their own experience, but maybe when they're cooking something at home, how long do you put something in the microwave for example? Are there better ways to heat it up more effectively? This could maybe then go into a range of jobs. So if you're a chef, maybe there's students who are working part-time in McDonald's where they've got to do certain things to a certain standard. That could actually be something that students are maybe doing at the moment. And also, this can then make links to their own lives. So again, it's not just this complicated bit of physics that only stays in the classroom. They can relate this to their everyday life. And of course, building scientific vocabulary, well, there's lots you can talk about there. Students can be talking to each other, they can be listening to each other, and you might introduce maybe other sorts of food. Maybe you've got a tin of soup, maybe you've got a smaller tin of baked beans, which might have different information on the side of it. And also, there is plenty of time for maths, okay? And there's lots of maths that you can do. And it doesn't just have to be going straight to the equation. It could be this kind of approach where you take these logical steps. Now, this is all related, really, to what I said back at the start of the video. There is a government advisor, and when they were talking about why not enough girls are doing physics at A-level and choosing that, she basically just said, "I just think they don't like it." Which is completely not true. Some girls might not like physics, but there's plenty of boys who don't like it. And in terms of their ability, it actually tends to be that girls tend to outperform boys when it comes to GCSE and A-level maths. And that means if you're watching this and you're a girl and you're able to do A-level maths, then you're completely able to do A-level physics. And again, it's not just girls. There are so many people in underrepresented groups who maybe think that physics isn't for them. So yeah, top tips for inclusive science teaching. You can download a poster, you can download the booklet, or you can even send off for hard copies if you're a teacher and you think this might help you and the other members of your department. And of course, if you are somebody watching there who maybe isn't an old white man like me, and you are thinking about doing A-level physics, I've got loads of videos over on my YouTube channel and also on a website, alevelphysicsonline.com, and you can have a look there at this introductory series of videos that I made, and also you can see the kind of content that you will be exposed to at A-level and actually realise it's not that bad. So if you're a teacher and would like to make sure that your lessons are inclusive for all the students that you're teaching, have a look at this guide and use that as you're structuring and planning your lessons.